My phone buzzed for the fifth time in a row while I was at work going over supplier compliance reports. The same number home was used for all of the missed calls. Presuming an emergency had occurred, I left the food safety lab. However, as soon as I responded, my father's voice erupted into my ear, loud and angry, like though I had just committed a horrible act. "Clara, are you making fun of us? What is this? How much of an insult is this?" I blinked. "What are you saying?" He wasn't paying attention. "You send us 50 cents and call yourself our daughter. 50? Have you gone insane?" It was immediately followed by my mother's voice, bitter and abrasive. "Clara, you truly are self-centered. While we suffer, you live alone and spend money on yourself. Each month, Sienna delivers 4,000. 4,000? For once, why can't you be like her?" For a moment, I was unable to breathe. Grasping the metal railing outside the building as though it were holding me together, I took a step back. "That is untrue. I've been correctly withdrawing $4,000 from my account each month. You ought to verify." My father spat, "Don't tell lies. We heard everything from Sienna. The money is coming from her. While your sister makes sacrifices for us, you laze around doing nothing. This is how you've always been, disappointing." The line died. For a while I stood there oblivious to my hands trembling. In order to send money home, I had been working every weekend as a warehouse checker at a 24-hour supermarket, foregoing meals and life altogether. I had done it because I thought I could be seen for once, not because they requested. Perhaps this was my chance to make a difference, I thought. However, it was insufficient even today. I wasn't sufficient. They believed I had sent 50 cents. I returned to the lab with ringing ears and blurry eyes. All I could see when I looked at the sample sheet in front of me was the $1,000 number. I made somewhat less than $3,000. In order to reach that figure and be noticed, I had to work the remaining hours on the weekends and skip meals. They spit on it now. Clara Monroe is my name. I work as a quality assurance analyst in a medium-sized food packaging facility in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I am 28 years old. My one-bedroom flat overlooks nothing noteworthy, and I live alone. My wake-up time is 5 a.m. I take the bus to the store every Saturday where I work nights in a frigid warehouse. I was never the good daughter, though, for some reason. My 5-year younger sister, Sienna, had always been the center of attention. Tall and brilliant, she was born with a face that attracted admiration like flowers attract bees. She has been referred to as angelic since kindergarten. She consistently received private music lessons, new clothes, and the last piece of cake. Silently, I received her hand-me-downs. Even so, I never thought they would still think I was the self-centered one after all these years, working 2 jobs and subsisting on rice and canned beans. And I didn't cry that night. I didn't become angry. I kept asking myself the same question as I stared at the bedroom ceiling until daybreak. To them, what am I? I discovered early in life that being the older sister did not equate to being admired. Being invisible was the consequence. My first recollections are of standing at the kitchen doorway, watching my parents fuss over Sienna as if she were made of gold and glass, rather than birthday candles or goodnight stories. My mother used to exclaim, "She's got that spark," as she brushed Sienna's hair like spun silk. You should see that face on television. We would be stopped by strangers at supermarkets. "What a beautiful young girl." They would lean in Sienna's direction and coo. "She ought to work as a model." They would then look at me and remain silent. I persuaded myself it didn't matter at first. I wasn't raised to win beauty pageants. However, you begin to sense it when you're 7 years old and wearing clothes that don't fit well while your sister spins around in brand new gowns from the downtown boutique. The distinction. It was present in everything. My parents told me the costs were too exorbitant when I wanted to join the school chorus. "Clara, it's just singing. Pay attention to your studies." However, the check was written the same day Sienna expressed her desire for ballet lessons. Not even ballet appealed to her. My parents answered, "It's only fair. She needs space to grow." "You don't need much, Clara," in response to Sienna's request for her own room. I then went into the living room next to the ancient cabinet that held pictures of our ancestors after packing up my belongings. I wasn't asked if I was comfortable with it. They simply believed that since I always understood, I would. Walter Monroe, my grandfather, was the one who gave me the impression that I was more than just background noise. He was the one who put me on his lap, told me tales of courageous women and silent triumphs, and held my hand during thunderstorms. He also sent me violets every spring. "Because you were born at the same time as the violets flowered and will grow up to be as serene and strong as them," Dad gave me the name Clara. I was 9 when he passed away. There was nobody remaining in the house who actually saw me after that. Saul's flapping had me wear shoes, but I didn't mind. When Sienna took my markers and never gave them back, I didn't object. My parents always replied the same thing when I brought it up, but I didn't cry when she said, "You can't borrow my stuff. It's mine, but I can use yours." You don't care. Let it go, Clara. The older one is you. Show maturity. Sienna is still a young girl. Even while she was lying. Even when I didn't do anything, she yelled at me. Even when I had to present a paper rather than a model since she destroyed my scientific project the night before the fair. She was never reprimanded. I never received an apology from anyone. Maybe it might change, I thought. It never happened that they would look at me and say, "Clara, we see you. We're proud of you." Rather, it was Sienna's letter of acceptance to a prestigious university which was entirely paid for by our parents and me. I never even had the opportunity to apply. They stated we couldn't afford it. Once you graduate from high school, you should get a job. Consider Sienna's future as well. They weren't impoverished. Not at all. But they always recognized who was more deserving when it came to picking between us. And I was never the one. When I moved out, I was 21. It was not a rebellious act. It was a matter of survival. 3 rail stops from my house, I recently started working at a food packaging company. Even though the pay wasn't great, I reasoned that perhaps if I stayed at home for a few years, I could save up enough money to either breathe or return to school. However, nothing changed even after high school. I remained an afterthought. The one who still had to wait for a shower. If Sienna felt like it, she was still the one who ate dinner by herself. Remains the person who was supposed to move aside when her voice grew louder. So one evening, I rented a studio apartment downtown, packed 2 suitcases, and picked up a used microwave from a Craigslist listing without informing anyone. In the winter, it was small and drafty. It was mine, but the water heater clicked as if it had asthma. I had never felt at ease until I lived alone. I occasionally saw my parents during holidays, birthdays, and other occasions. However, I always called. I sent cards all the time. Anniversaries were always in my memory. Perhaps I believed that would demonstrate my continued concern. Next came Sienna's phone call. She sounded different, perhaps more genuine and less theatrical. She said, "I've been thinking. Our parents provided us with everything. I'd want to start contributing." I remained silent. She continued in an unusually animated tone. "Clara, let's send the money. I'm grateful. We only make $4,000 a month together. I'll cover the majority of it after all. I believed we could work together, even though I earn more than you do." $4,000? That was more than I spent on meals and rent altogether. I paused. "Sienna, that's a lot." She laughed. "You know modeling pays handsomely. Additionally, I've been working as an influencer. In any case, I believe that parents would be very moved. We might take them by surprise. Oh, and let's give it a catchy moniker. Rain, perhaps, to keep them from knowing immediately." Her optimistic, upbeat tone gave me hope that perhaps Sienna was finally maturing, even though I didn't understand the purpose of the concealment. That perhaps this is an opportunity for us to work together. I concurred. I downloaded a joint transfer app that evening and set aside $2,000 for my money to be transferred the following morning. I made somewhat less than $3,000. I would then need to find an additional $1,000 each month. I therefore accepted a weekend job working the night shift in the stock department at a neighboring supermarket. It smelled slightly of bleach and onions and was humid in the summer and frigid in the winter. To keep the numbers working, I sold my bike, canceled my phone subscription, and stopped eating takeout. On some evenings, I returned home, undressed, and fell onto the mattress without changing. In an attempt to advance in my career and eventually earn more money, I set alarms to study for a certification as a small business consultant. But each time I counted coins at the register and felt the pain in my back, I convinced myself it was worth it. "Clara, this is how you show them you love them. You earn your spot in this way." Thus, I sent $2,000 signed by Clara Monroe each month without fail. I suppose that Sienna was sending the other $2,000. That was our agreement. That was my belief. When they first yelled at me, I assumed it was an error, a transfer malfunction, or misunderstanding. However, my father lost his temper when I clarified and told them that I had been sending $2,000 each month under my name. Don't tell lies. We are aware that Sienna has been sending $4,000. You sent just 50 cents. 50 cents? Initially, I chuckled. Before it could reach my lips, the hollow sound died. Silently, "Dad, check the receipts," I whispered. Disgusted, she said, "Check the transaction logs," but he wasn't listening. My mother took over. Sienna is intelligent. She is prosperous. She proudly sends us what she has earned. You're off squandering money and feigning martyrdom in the meantime. They took her word for it. They thought that Sienna's stage name, Rain, which she demanded we use, was her sign of kindness. And they thought it was the jest, the insult, or the spare cash I threw at them to save face when they saw the other transfer, mine plainly marked as Clara Monroe. Then I recalled how Sienna had chuckled when she chose that moniker. It should be sent as Rain. Something lovely, you know. Being attractive hadn't been the point. The goal had been to take center stage once more. My father yelled, "We don't need your mockery. Keep your 50 cents, before they hung up before I could say anything more. I sat quietly. It was dark in my apartment. At 1 a.m., the microwave clock was the only source of light. I refrained from crying. I refrained from screaming. However, something inside of me broke and my jaw tightened. I had to be told the truth. I gave Harper a call the following morning. Harper Lee was more than simply my best friend from high school. She was among the few persons I had complete faith in. Sharp as ever, her voice was like a razor, and she now worked in consulting. She would discover it if things wasn't right. We went to a diner close to her workplace for lunch. She crossed her arms and sat back in her chair before I had even finished narrating the entire story. You're too nice, Clara. That is your issue. For a family that wouldn't even put a band-aid on you, you've been bleeding. I blinked. With a low, methodical voice, she continued. I have a question for you. Are your parents truly impoverished, or are they only accustomed to using guilt trips to get money from you? They claim to have incurred bills from rearing us, after all. Harper laughed. You did not attend college at all. Sienna received her degree. The new attire. She had the room to herself. How much of the money was spent on you? I didn't respond. Harper leaned in. Do you even know whether Sienna makes money or what she does with it? The words felt like ice in my gut. Harper called again later that evening. She spoke in a bland tone. I made inquiries. Sienna only has bits from web catalogs. She doesn't have any actual gigs. To give the impression that she is working, she shares throwbacks to previous shootings. And here's the thing, I heard someone say to her pals, my sister helps me out. I don't even have to work full-time. My throat got dry. Harper went on to say, your dad? He's not working full shifts. He's been spotted at that dubious casino outside town. And your mom? She's been boasting about her new designer bag. I believe it's Gucci. Everything inside me burned. I had gone hungry, worked in freezing warehouses, and given up weekends, sleep, and peace for them. And they used that money to gamble, shop, and lie. That night, I stopped the payments. I made a self-promise to never give them another dollar until they understood the price I had to pay for it. 2 months went by, during which I blocked Sienna on all platforms, disregarded my mother's calls, texts, and voicemails filled with guilt, and spoke only silence. She sounded frantic, not angry, panicked. And for the first time, it felt powerful until my phone rang again one morning just after 8 o'clock. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I was ready. Maybe I wanted to hear it. Clara. Sienna barked. Why haven't you been answering? Why did you stop sending money? Are you out of your mind? There it was. The truth. She had danced around for years. You did lie, I said flatly. There was silence. I went on calmly and slowly. You said it would be our gift. Equal. You never told them I was the one sending the money. I'm already drowning in expenses. I told Mom and Dad it was from both of us, and now they think I lied. As you were getting facials and hosting influencer brunches, there was more silence. I know about the debt, I added. Or should I say the lack of debt? There never was any, was there? She attempted to deflect. You don't get it. She started to speak, but I stopped her. Do you know how many weekends I spent in a freezer just to send that money? The modeling industry is cruel. I'm trying my hardest. No, you're not, I replied. You're just using people as you always have. I hung up, but the fallout was just getting started. A week later, my parents unexpectedly arrived at my apartment with Sienna. Their faces were drawn and exhausted, but their eyes glowed as soon as I opened the door. My father said, we've been trying to reach you, and my mother said, Clara, there you are, as if this were a reunion rather than a reckoning. We need your help, just a little alone, to get us through this rough patch. Sienna stood behind them, her lips quivering. Please, I made a mistake. I believed I could succeed. I believed the new agency to be authentic. I gazed at her. Which organization? She cast her gaze downward. Then everything poured out. She believed that Sienna had been scouted by a high-end New York talent agency. If she could pay an entrance investment fee, they would give her a contract and a main role in an independent movie. She naturally turned to our parents for assistance. My dad donated his early retirement savings. A personal loan was taken out by my mother. After Sienna sent the money, there was stillness. The agency never gave a call back. No contact, no contract. They had lost everything and it was a swindle. In order to pay off the loan defaults, the house had to be sold. On the east side of town, they took up residence in a dilapidated apartment building. To make ends meet, my father took temporary work. My mom began cleaning offices. Unemployed and humiliated, Sienna hopped from nightclub to nightclub in an attempt to get tips as a hostess. But she was impossible to keep because of her attitude. As a final resort, they had turned to me. And I treated them as though they were strangers. You betrayed my confidence. You put her lies ahead of my truth. You are now my assistants. My mom winced. My dad's mouth clenched. I looked at them for a while until Sienna said, "Please, Clara, we don't have anyone else." For the second time that year, I shut the door in their faces after saying, without blinking, "Before you come to me, go to the police. Go to a therapist. Go to the mirror." The knock was louder and more urgent this time. I didn't respond. They stood there shifting on the porch as if they still belonged there, as I stared from behind the curtain. My dad was looking at his watch. Something was whispered into Sienna's ear by my mother. Like a toddler who has finally realized there are no more toys to break, Sienna merely gazed at the floor. They eventually slipped an envelope under the door before leaving. My blood ran cold as I saw the single piece of paper with the hastily written words, "No, dear Clara. No, we're sorry." Just a list of numbers and a final line scrolled at the bottom. "If you don't help, we'll use your grandfather's savings. Think of this as your last chance." Grandpa Walter had left that money in a trust in my name when he passed away. He had seen something in me then that he wanted to preserve and protect, and now they wanted to tear even that away. I didn't think twice, and the following morning I went to the bank and transferred the whole amount into a secured investment account under legal lock, changing my number. It was no longer just about money, it was about finally taking a stand and saying no more trying, no more pretending, no more believing that if I just loved them more, they would eventually see me. I told my landlord not to forward anything from unknown senders, erased all old voicemails and texts, and then took a deep breath. I wasn't their daughter, I was their resource, their backup plan, their afterthought. When Sienna's charm didn't work, I quit playing the part and stopped answering to the Clara they'd made up in their minds. Weeks and months went by, and the silence turned into consolation rather than punishment. I put my work first, passed the certification exam I had been studying for, and after Harper helped me apply to a new consulting firm in Columbus, I was hired as a team leader and moved into a sunlit apartment near the river. The kind with hardwood floors and a small balcony where I could grow violets, the same ones my grandfather loved. The new firm was bigger, paid better, and offered real growth opportunities. When my phone buzzed one afternoon while I was opening a box of books, it was Harper's message, "You've come a long way. I hope you see that." I stared at the screen for a long time before responding, "I do. For the first time, I truly do, and I meant it." 5 years later, I would consider that day to be the true start of my life. The day I picked myself, let them go, and saw myself rise in the solitude they left behind was not the day I graduated or moved out, but it had been 5 years since I last heard their voices. During that time, I mentored 3 junior analysts and received 2 promotions. It was a warm October afternoon in Miami, with a sky like silk and a breeze rolling off the ocean with just enough salt to remind you where you were. I learned how to make bread from scratch, traveled, read, and laughed more than I ever imagined. And I never once looked back, not until Harper's wedding. Harper looked stunning, her gown simple, her eyes brighter than I had ever seen them, and the ceremony took place in a small but radiant chapel by the sea, full of gentle music and the kind of laughter that only comes from people who truly love each other. Harper had always been the strong one, the one who pulled people back from the edge, the one who reminded me that love didn't have to be something you begged for. As the celebration fell into a cadence of toasts and slow dancing, Harper walked over and took my hand. "Clara," she smiled. Her husband, Michael, was gentle, patient, the kind of man who never needed to be the loudest in the room. Together, they looked like a promise now fulfilled. I followed her to the edge of the terrace, where a tall man with a light beard, tan suit, and a smile that seemed to be fading before he turned to face me said, "This is Nick." Harper nudged me, "This is Nick, an architect with a golden heart who apparently has a thing for violets because they're obstinate flowers." Nick laughed softly and quietly. We talked about books, cities, how the Midwest teaches you to hold silence like armor, and how sometimes letting go of your family is the only way to build one of your own. I raised an eyebrow and he looked at me. That sounds familiar. I swear for a moment it felt like the world stopped. Some things don't need to be explained to be understood, so I didn't give it to him. Later, when the evening was turning to candlelight and the DJ began playing gentle jazz, I went outside to the balcony by myself. The sky was vast and cloudless and endless, the kind of sky Grandpa Walter would have cherished. I closed my eyes. "Grandpa, are you watching?" I muttered, "Your Clara is all right now. I'm flowering, just like you said I would." A bell rung softly in the distance, and I grinned, thinking perhaps this was liberation rather than retaliation.